Gemini 3, we're sitting here. Reception seems super positive. The vibes of the model are good.
I'm very excited about the progress. I'm excited about the research.
We had actually pushed the frontier on a bunch of dimensions.
This is how we are going to build AGI. We want to do it the right way. And that's where we are putting all our minds, all our innovation.
It's not like it's this purely research effort that's off in a lab somewhere. Like it's a joint effort with us in the world.
This is a new world, right? There's a new technology that is defining a lot of what users expect.
We are, in some sense, like co-building AGI with our customers.
So all of a sudden, you enable a lot more people to be builders.
Bring anything to life.
Anything to life, right?
Yeah, I feel like the next 6 months are going to be probably just as exciting as the last 6 months and the previous 6 months before that.
We are lucky to be living in this age. It's happening right now. It's very exciting.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Release Notes. My name is Logan Kilpatrick. I'm on the DeepMind team. Today, it's an honor to be joined by Koray Kavukcuoglu, who is the CTO of DeepMind and the new Chief AI Architect of Google. Koray, thanks for being here. I'm excited to chat.
Me too. Yeah, very excited. Thanks for inviting.
Of course, great. Gemini 3, we're sitting here, we've launched the model. Reception seems super positive. Like I think we went out and we obviously had a hunch about how good the model was going to be. Leaderboards looked awesome, but I think putting it in the hands of users and actually getting out is like
that's always the test, right? Like, I mean, we have been like benchmarking is the first step, and then we have been doing tests. We have been like with trusted testers, with peer release and everything. So you get a feeling that yes, it's a good model, it's capable. It's not perfect, right? But like I think I'm quite pleased with the reception. Really, people seem to like the model and the kinds of things that I think we found interesting. They also found interesting. So like that's good so far. Like this is good.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday, and the thread of the conversation was just around like appreciating this moment that the progress isn't slowing down, which I think resonates with me. And as I was reflecting back to the last time I sat next to you, we were at I/O as we launched 2.5, and we were listening to Demis and Sergey talk about AI and all that stuff. I feel like the progress has not slowed down, which is really interesting. Like when we launched 2.5, it felt like a state-of-the-art model, and it felt like we had actually pushed the frontier on a bunch of dimensions. And I feel like 3.0 delivers that again.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what the scaling conversation of can it continue continues to go. What's your sense right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm very excited about the progress. I'm excited about the research. Like when you are actually there in the research, there are a lot of excitement in terms of like in all areas of this, right? Like, I mean, from data, pre-training, post-training, everywhere. We see a lot of excitement. We see a lot of progress, a lot of new ideas. At the end of the day, like this whole thing is really running on innovation, running on ideas, right? The more we do something that is impactful, that is in real world, that people use, you will actually get more ideas because like your surface area increases, the kinds of signals that you get increases. And I think like the problems will get harder, the problems will get more varied, right? And with that, like I think like we will be challenged, and these kinds of challenges are good.
Yeah.
And I think that is the driver for like going towards building intelligence as well. Right, like that's how it's going to happen. I feel like sometimes, like if you look at one or two benchmarks, you can see squeeze, but I think that's normal because benchmarks are defined at a time when something was a challenge. You define that benchmark, and then of course, like as the technology progresses, that benchmark becomes not the frontier. It doesn't define the frontier, and then what happens is like you define a new benchmark. It's very normal in machine learning, right? Like benchmarks and model development is always hand in hand. Like you need the benchmarks to guide the model development, but you only know what the next frontier is when you get close to it, so that you can define with the new benchmark.
Yeah, I feel this way, and there was a couple of benchmarks like HLE originally, all the models were horrible on and doing like 1 or 2%, and I think now the newest with DeepThink is like 40-something%, which is crazy.
Yeah.
ARC-AGI 2 was originally all the models could barely do any of that. It's now like 40 plus, so it is interesting, and then it's also interesting to see, and I don't have the context on why, the benchmarks that are static that do have a little bit of like the test of time, if you will. And like, I think they are probably close to saturating, but like GPQA Diamond as an example, it like continues to stick around even though we're eking out 1% or whatever.
It's like there are really hard questions there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and like those hard things we are still not able to do.
Yeah.
Right. And they still test something. But if you think about like where we are with GPQA, like it's not like, oh, there's like you're at 20s and you need to go to 90s, right? Like, so you're getting close there. So the number of things that it defines as unsolved is like, of course, like decreasing. So at some point it's good to find new frontiers, new benchmarks. And defining benchmarks is really, really important, right? Like, because if you're gonna think about, like, if we think about benchmarks as the definition of progress, which does not necessarily always align, right? Like there's this thing between like there's progress and then there's the benchmarks. In an ideal case, it's 100% aligned, but it's never 100% aligned. Like to me, the most important measure of progress is like we have our models in real world, and scientists use them, students use them, like lawyers use them, engineers use them, and then like people use them to do like all sorts of things, writing, creative writing, emails, easy or hard, right? Like that spectrum is important, and different topics, different domains. If you can actually continue delivering larger value there, I think that's progress. And these benchmarks help you quantify that.
Yeah. How do you think about, and like, and maybe even there's a particular example from like 2.5 to 3 or like whatever, we could choose whichever model version change you want. Where are we hill climbing? And like how in a world where there's like a zillion benchmarks now actually of, you could choose where you want to hill climb. How are you thinking about for just like broadly Gemini, but also maybe the Pro model specifically, like where do we try to hill climb for that?
I think like there are several important areas, right? Like one of them is instruction following is important. Instruction following is where like the model needs to be able to understand the requests of the user and to be able to follow that, right? Like you don't want the model just like answering whatever it thinks it should answer, right? So that instruction following capability is important, and that's what we always do. And then like for us, internationalization is important. Google is very international, and we want to reach everyone in the world. So that part is important.
And I feel like 3.0 Pro, at least I was talking to Tulsi this morning, and she was remarking about how incredible the model is for like languages that historically we haven't been really good at, which is awesome to see.
So like continuously, you have to put the focus on some of these areas, right? They might not look like okay, it's the frontier of knowledge, but they're really, really important because like you want to be able to interact with the users there, because as I said, it's all about getting that signal from the users. And then like if you come to actually like a little bit more technical domains, function calls, tool calls, agentic actions, and code, these are really important, right? Like function calls and tool calls are important because I think it's a whole different like multiplier of intelligence that comes from there, both from the point of view of the models being able to just naturally use all the tools and functions that we have created ourselves, and then use it in its own reasoning, but also the model writing its own tools, right? Like you can think that like the models are, in a way, the models are tools in themselves as well. So that one is a big thing. Like obviously, like code is because like not just because we are all software engineers, but also because like we know that like with that you can actually build anything that is happening on your laptop. And on your laptop, it's not just software engineering that happens.
Bring anything to life.
Anything to life, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we do right now happens in digital world, and code is the basis for that, to be able to integrate with anything that happens, pretty much anything that happens in your life. Not everything, but like a lot of things. That's why these two things together, I think, like makes up for a lot of reach, like for users as well. I give this example of like vibe coding, right? I like it. Why? Because like a lot of people are creative, they have ideas, and all of a sudden you make them productive, right? Like going from creative to productive in a way that like you can just write it down, and then like you see the application in front of you, and like it is like, I mean, most of the time it works, and when it works, it's great, right? Like I mean,
so cool.
And that loop, I think, is great. So all of a sudden you enable a lot more people to be builders, like building something. Like I mean, like it's great.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you for this. Is the AI Studio pitch. I appreciate it.
Right.
We'll clip this part out. We'll put it out online. One of the interesting threads that you mentioned is like how, and actually as part of this Gemini 3 moment, we launched Google Anti-Gravity, a new agentic coding platform. How much do you think about like the importance of having this product scaffolding to hill climb on quality from a model perspective? Obviously, tool calling and coding.
Yeah. It's like, to me, it's very, very important. And I think like anti-gravity as a product itself, yes, it's exciting, but like from a model perspective, if you think about it, so it's like double-sided, right? Like, let's talk about first the model perspective. From the model perspective, like being able to have this integration with the end users, in this case software engineers, and learning from them directly to understand where the model needs to improve is really critical for us. I mean, it is important for in areas like Gemini app is important for the same reason, right? Like, I mean, understanding users directly is very, very important. Anti-gravity is the same way. AI Studio is the same way. So having these products that we work really closely with, and then understanding and learning that getting those user signals, I think is really massive. And anti-gravity has been a very critical launch partner. It hasn't been long that they have joined, right? But in the last 2-3 weeks of our launch process, like their feedback has been really, really instrumental. The same thing with search AI mode, right? Like, I mean, AI overviews even that we get a lot of feedback from there. So like, to me, this integration with the products and getting that signal is the main driver that we understand. Like, of course, we have the benchmark. So like, we know how to push the STEM, the sciences, the math, that kind of intelligence. But it's really important that actually we understand the real world use cases, because like, I mean, this has to be useful in the real world.
Yeah. How in your new chief AI architect role, you're now responsible for also making sure that we don't just have good models, but the products actually take the models and implement them and sort of build sort of great product experiences across Google. How much, obviously I think this is the right thing for users, like getting Gemini 3 in all the product surfaces on day one is like an awesome accomplishment for Google. And I think even more so, hopefully more product services in the future. How much additional complexity from the DeepMind perspective do you think it adds to try to do this? In some sense, life was simpler a year and a half ago.
Sure. But like, we are building intelligence, right? A lot of people ask me, you have these two roles. Like, I mean, I have these like two titles in a way, but they're very much the same thing. If we are going to build intelligence, we have to do it with the products, through the products, connecting with the users. With the Kaya role, what I'm trying to do is make sure that the products in Google have the best technology that is available to them. We are not trying to do the products. Like, we are not product people, we are technology developers, right? Like, we develop the technology, we do the models. And of course, like, I mean, just like everyone is opinionated on anything, like, I mean, people are opinionated. But like, the most important thing for me is like making the models, making the technology available in the best way that is possible, and then work with the product teams to enable them to build the best product in this AI world. Like, because this is a new world, right? There's a new technology that is defining a lot of what users expect and how the products should behave, what information that they should carry over, and all the new things that you can do with this new technology. So to me, it's about enabling that across Google, working with all the products. I think that's exciting, both from the product perspective, from what users getting perspective, but also from the point of view of, like, as I said, that's our main driver. Right? Like, it's really important for us to be able to feel that user need, to be able to get that user signal. That's critical for us. So that's why I wanted to do it. That, like, this is how we are going to build AGI. This is how we are going to build intelligence, like, with the products.
Yeah,
that's how I think it's going to happen.
this is a great tweet for you to put out at some point, because I do think it's interesting. I share this perspective that like we are in some sense like co-building AGI with our customers, with the other PAs. Like, it's not like it's this purely research effort that's off in a lab somewhere. Like, it's a joint effort with us in the world.
And I think like it is actually a very trusted, tested system as well. That like, it's a very engineering mindset that I think we are adapting more and more. And I think it's important to have an engineering mindset in this one, because like when something is like nicely engineered, you know that it is robust, it is like safe to use. So like we are doing something in real world, and we are adapting all the trusted, tested, in a way, ideas of how to build things. And I think like that's reflected in how we think about safety, how we think about security, right? Like, we try to think about it again from that engineering mindset of think about it from the ground up, from the beginning, not something that comes at the end, right? Like, we don't like, so when we are doing post-training models, when we are doing pre-training, when we are looking at our data, we always have this, like everyone needs to think about this, like do we have a safety team? Obviously we have a safety team.
Yeah.
And they are bringing in all the technology that is related to it. We have a security team, they're bringing in all the technology, but enabling everyone in Gemini to actually also heavily be part of that development process that is taking this as a first principle. And those teams are themselves part of our post-training teams, right? Like, so when we are developing these, when we are doing these iterations, release candidates, just like we look at like GPQA, HLE, those kinds of benchmarks, we look at its safety security measures as well. Like that's I think that is a very, like, that engineering mindset is important.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it also feels natural to Google, which is also helpful because of how collaborative and like how big the effort is now
Yes.
to ship Gemini models out the door.
I mean, with Gemini 3, I think, like, we were just reflecting on this. Like, to me, one of the important things is, like, this model has been a very Team Google model.
We should look into the data. I might be like one of the, I mean, some of the, like maybe the Apollo NASA programs had a lot of people, but like it is, I think this massive Google global effort across all of our teams to make happen, which is crazy.
Every Gemini release, like, takes people from, like, this continent, Europe, Asia, all around the world. Like, we have teams all around the world, and they contribute, and like not just GDM teams, right? Like all teams across Google.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge collaborative effort. And like, we sim shipped with AI mode, we sim shipped with Gemini app, right? These are not easy to do. Because they were together with us during our development. That's the only way that on day one, we can actually go all together out at the same time the model is ready. And we have been doing that. When we say across Google, it's not just like people actively trying to build the model. All the product teams, they doing their parts as well.
Yeah. I have maybe this isn't a controversial question, but you know, Gemini 3 were sort of soda on many benchmarks, a lot of benchmarks. We're sort of sim shipping across, across the Google product surfaces, our sort of partner ecosystem surfaces. The reception is very positive, sort of the vibes of the model are good. If you sort of fast forward, knock on wood, if we sort of fast forward to like the next major Google model launch, like are there things that you are like still on your list of you wish we were doing X, Y, and Z? Or like how does it get better than the or should we just enjoy the moment of Gemini 3? And
I think we should do more, right? Like, we should enjoy the moment, because like one day of enjoying the moment is a good thing. Like,
yeah.
this is the launch day, and like I think people are appreciating the model. So like I'd like the team to enjoy this moment as well, right? But at the same time, every area we look at, we also see gaps. Right? Like, is it perfect in writing? No, it's not perfect in writing. Is it perfect in coding? It's not perfect in coding.
Yeah.
I mean, especially I think on the area of like agentic actions and coding, I think I think that there's a lot more room there. That's one of the most exciting growth areas, and like we need to identify where we can do more, and we'll do more, right? Like, I think we have come a long way. The model is, like, I would say pretty much like maybe 95% of the people who will engage with coding in some ways, either software engineers or these like creative people who want to build something.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that this model is the best thing that they can use, right? But there are some cases probably that we still need to do better.
Yeah, I have another sort of pointed question for coding and tool use. What do you think has it just been, if you sort of look at the history for Gemini, and obviously we had like a very multimodal focus for 1.0, and I think for 2.0 we started to make some of the like agentic infrastructure work. Like, do you have a sense of like why and I'll make the caveat that like I think the rate of progress looks really strong, but like why has it just been like a focus thing why we haven't been like state of the art in agentic tool use from the get-go? But for example, multimodal, we have been literally Gemini 1 was state of the art at multimodal, and we've sort of held that for a long time.
I don't think it was a deliberate thing. I think it was like, I mean, honestly, I think like if anything, when I reflect back, I tie it to using the models, the development environment being closely tied to real world. The more we are tied, then we are more better understanding these like real requirements that is happening. Yeah. And I think like in our journey in Gemini, we started from a point where, of course, like, I mean, like the AI research in Google is a huge history, right? Like the amount of amazing researchers that we have and the amazing history of AI research that has been done in Google. I think it's great, but like Gemini is also a journey of moving from that like research environment into this, like as we talked, this engineering mindset, and getting into a space where we are really connected with the products, right? Like when I look at the team, like I have to say, I feel really proud because like this team is still majority formed by people like including me, right? Like for 5 years ago, we were writing papers, like we were researching AI. And here we are, actually, we are at that frontier of that technology, and that technology, you are developing it via products with the users. It's a completely different mindset that we are building models every 6 months and then we are doing updates every month, month and a half. It's an amazing shift. And like, I think like we walked through that shift.
Yeah, I love that. Gemini 3 progress has been awesome. Another thread that was top of mind is just generally sort of how we're thinking about like where the gen media models, which I think historically have like not been a huge, I mean, not that they haven't been a focus, they've also always been interesting, but I feel like we've had with VO3, VO 3.1, with the Nano Banana model, we've had like so much success from like a product externalization standpoint. And I'm curious how you think about in this like pursuit of we want to build AGI. Sometimes I think sometimes I can convince myself that like a video model is like not part of that story. I don't think that's true. I think in general you can sort of you should understand the world and physics and all this other stuff. So I'm curious how you see all these things intertwining together.
If you actually go back like 10, 15 years ago, generative models were mostly on images, right? Like because like we could much better inspect like what is going on in terms of, and also this idea of understanding the world, understanding the physics was the main driver of doing generative models with images and so on. Like some of the exciting things that we have done with generative models like date back to like 10 years ago, like waving at this 10 years ago.
Feels like 20.
Right? 20 years ago, we were still doing image models, right?
Yeah,
like, I mean, that's why I was hesitating a little bit. But during my PhD, we were doing like generative image models, right? Like everyone was doing those at that time. We walked through that. Like, I mean, we had things called like pixel CNNs, right? Like they were like image generative models. In a way, what happened was, I think it was also a big realization that text actually was the better domain to have very fast progress. But I think it is very natural that the image models are coming back. And like at GDM, we have had really strong image, video, audio models for a long time. I think that's what I'm trying to explain maybe. Bringing those together, I think, is natural. So where we are going right now is we have always talked about this multimodality, right? And of course, naturally, like we have always talked about like input-output multimodality, and that's where we are going, right? And when you look at it, as the technology progresses, the architectures, the ideas in between those two different domains have been merging with each other. It used to be that these architectures were very different, right? But they are getting together quite a lot. So like, it's not like we are forcing something in. What is happening is naturally the technology is converging. As the technology is converging, it is converging because everyone understands where to get more efficiency from, where the ideas are evolving, and we see a common path, and that common path, I think, is getting together well. So Nano Banana is one of those first moments, right? Like where you can iterate over images, you can talk to the model, because what happens is like text models have a lot of world understanding, right? Like from the text, they have a lot of world understanding, and then the image model has the world understanding from a different perspective. So like when you merge those two, I think you get exciting things, because like I think people feel that this model understands the nuance that they want to get through.
I have another question about Nano Banana stuff. Do you think we should just have goofy names for all of our models? Do you think that would help?
Not really. Look, I mean, like I think we didn't do it on purpose.
Gemini 3. If we didn't name it Gemini 3, what would we have called it? Something ridiculous.
I don't know. I'm not good at names.
Rift
I think I like. I mean, it was Rift Runner, right? Like it was Rift Runner. Like we actually use Gemini model. Those are code names. We use Gemini models to come up with those code names too. And Nano Banana was not one of those. Like we didn't use Gemini, right? There's a story about it. I think like it's published somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as these things are natural and like organic, I think I'm happy, because I think the teams who are building the models, it's good for them to sort of like have that connection.
Yeah.
And then when we release them, like I think that just like, I mean, that happened because we were testing the model with the code name, right, on LM Arena, and people loved it. And I think, like, I don't know, I'd like to think that it was so organic that like sort of it caught on. I'm not sure if you can create a process to generate that.
I agree with you. That's my feeling.
So if we have it, we should use it. If you don't have it, it's good to have standard names.
Yeah. We should talk about Nano Banana Pro, which is our new state-of-the-art image generation model built on top of Gemini 3 Pro. And I think the team, I think actually, even as they were sort of finishing, Nano Banana sort of like had early signal that potentially doing this in a pro capacity, like you could sort of get a lot more performance on a bunch of like more nuanced use cases like text rendering and world understanding and stuff like that. Anything sort of top of mind for, I know we're a lot of stuff going on, but
I think like this is like probably where we see this like alignment of different technologies is coming into play, right? Like, I mean, because with Gemini models, we have always said like every model version is a family of models, right? Like we have the Pro, Flash, Flashlight, like this family of models. Because at different sizes, you have different compromises in terms of speed, accuracy, cost, those kinds of things. As these things are coming together, of course, like we have the same experience on the image side as well.
yeah.
So I think it's natural that the teams like thought about, okay, like there's the 3.0 Pro architecture. Can we actually tune this model more to be like generative image using everything that we learned in the first version and increasing the size? And I think like where we end up with is something a lot more capable, understands really complex, like some of the most exciting use cases are you have large set of really complex documents. You can feed those in. We rely on these models to ask questions. You can ask it to generate an infographic about that as well, and then it works, right? So this is where this natural input modality, input-output modality just comes into play, and it's great.
Yeah, it feels like magic. I don't know, hopefully folks will have seen the examples by the time this video comes out, but I think it's so cool seeing a bunch of the internal examples being shared around. It's crazy.
Yes, I agree. Like it's exciting when you see that all of a sudden, oh my God, yes, like that's sort of huge amount of text and concepts and like complicated things explained in one picture, such a nice way.
Yeah.
Like when you see those things, like it's nice, right? Like you realize the model is capable.
And there's like so much nuance to it too, which is really interesting. I have a parallel question to this, which is probably December of last year, December 2024.
All right.
Tulsi was promising how we were going to sort of have these unified Gemini model checkpoints. And I think what you're describing is like actually that we've gotten really close to that now, where like the architecture historically was
unified in terms of like image generation and I see.
Yeah. And I'm curious, do you think like that, I assume that's like a goal, is like we want these things actually mainlined into the model. And there's like natural things that stop that from happening. And I'm curious like if any like context or sort of high level.
Look, I think as I said, the technology, the architectures, they are aligning. Right? So we see that happening. At regular intervals, people are trying, but it's an hypothesis. And like you can't be ideology based in this, right? The scientific method is the scientific method. Like we try things, we have an hypothesis, and you see the results. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's the progression that we go through. It's getting closer. I'm pretty sure near future we are going to see something getting together. And I think gradually it's going to be more and more like one single modality, but it will require a lot of innovation, right? Like it is hard, like if you think about it. The output space is very critical for the models because that's where your learning signal comes from, right? Right now our learning signal comes from code and text. That's the most of the driver of like that output space, and that's why like you are getting good at there. Now being able to generate images is like we are so tuned for the quality in images. Like it is a hard thing to do, right? Like generating really like the quality of the images, the pixel perfectness is hard. And then images are also conceptually, it has to be very coherent. Like every pixel, both the quality matters, but also how it fits with the general concept of the picture. Like it matters, right? It is harder to train something that does both. The way I look at this is, to me, I think it's definitely possible. It will be possible. It's just about finding the right innovations in the model to make it happen.
Yeah. I love it. I'm excited. It'll hopefully make our serving situation easier too if we have a
that I don't know.
A single model checkpoint.
It's impossible to say.
It's impossible. I agree with you. The sort of interesting thread as we sort of sit here and, you know, DeepMind has a bunch of the world's best AI products, hopefully, Vibe Coding and AI Studio, Gemini app, anti-gravity, and sort of across Google that's happening now. We have a great state-of-the-art model with Gemini 3. We have Nano Banana, we have Veo, we have all these models that are sort of at the frontier. The world looked very different like 10 years ago, or even like 15 years ago. And I'm sort of curious, like for your personal journey to get to this point. When we were talking yesterday, you had mentioned, which I had no idea, and I mentioned this to someone else, and they also were like, I had no idea of this. You were the first deep learning researcher at DeepMind, and I think taking that thread to this place that we're at now feels like it's a crazy jump to go from just like the fact that people weren't excited about this technology. I don't know how long ago you started at DeepMind, like 10 years?
2012.
13 years?
Yes.
That's crazy. 13 years ago,
13
people
years.
weren't excited about this technology to the place, or I guess DeepMind was excited about this technology to the place now where like it is literally powering all of these products and is like the main thing. And I'm curious, as you reflect on that, what comes to mind?
Well,
Is it surprising, or like was it obviously?
well, I mean, I think this is the hopeful, positive outcome scenario case, right?
Yeah.
Like the way I say it is like when I was doing my PhD, I think it's the same for everyone doing their PhDs. You believe that what you do is important or is going to be important, right? Like you're really interested on that topic. You think that it's going to make a big impact. And I think like I was in the same mindset. That's why I was really excited about DeepMind when like Demis and Shane reached out and we talked. I was really excited to learn that there was a place that was actually that was really focused on building intelligence, and deep learning was at the core of it. And it's actually like me and like my friend Carol Greger, actually like we were both in Jan's lab in NYU. We joined DeepMind at the same time. So just to be very specific. And then at those times, it was very unnatural that you would have a deep learning focused and AI focused startup even. So like I think that was very visionary and an amazing place to be. Like it was really exciting. And then like I started the deep learning team. It grew. I think one of the things that I mean, my approach to deep learning has always been that like a mentality of how you approach problems. And the first principle, it's always learning based. That's what DeepMind was about. Everything is bet on learning. It was an exciting journey to start from where we were at the days, and then RL and agents and everything that we have done along the way. Like you go into these things, at least like this is how I think. I go into these things hoping that a positive outcome happens. But I reflect and I say that like we are lucky, right? Like we are lucky to be living in this age, because I think a lot of people have worked on AI or the topics that they are really passionate about, thinking that this is their age and this is when it's going to pan out. But it's happening right now. And like we have to also realize that AI is happening right now, not just because machine learning and deep learning, but also because it's like the hardware evolution has come to a certain state, like internet and data has come to a certain state, right? So there are a lot of things that align together. And I feel lucky to be actually be doing AI and sort of like working up to this moment. I think it is like when I reflect, that's how I feel, that like, yes, they were all choices that like we worked on AI and we made, and I made like specific choices to work on AI. But also at the same time, I also feel very lucky at this time we are in this position. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love that. What I'm curious, like, what are some of the? And I was watching the thinking game video and sort of like learning more about like, which I hadn't, and I wasn't around for AlphaFold, so that's the only context that I have is like reading about it and seeing people talk about it. And I'm curious, like as you reflect and having lived through a bunch of that, how things are different today versus what they were before. And I'll sort of tee you up with one example, which is what you kind of alluded to off camera right before this, which is, and this is not exactly your words, you were like, we've kind of figured out how to make these models and bring them to the world. It was like sort of an essence of what you were getting at, which I agree with. And I'm curious if that felt like, how that is similar or not to how things were for some of the previous iterations.
I think how to organize, or the cultural traits of what is important to be successful, to turn hard scientific and technical problems into successful outcomes. I think we learned to do that a lot with many of the projects that we have done, starting from DQN, AlphaGo, AlphaZero, AlphaFold. All these kinds of things have been quite impactful, and in their ways, like we learned a lot on how to organize around the particular goal, particular mission, organize as a largish team. right? Like I remember in the early days of DeepMind, like we would work on a project with like 25 people, and we would write papers with 25 people, and then everyone would say to us, "Come on, like surely 25 people didn't work on this." And I would say, "Yes, they did, right?" Like I mean, we would organize, because in sciences and in research that wasn't common, right?
Yeah.
And I think like that knowledge, that mentality, I think is key. We evolved through that. I think that is really, really important. At the same time, I think like with the latest, like the last 2-3 years, as we talked, right? What we have been merged, like what we have merged this with is like the idea that now this is more like an engineering mindset where we have a main line of models that we are developing, and we learned how to do exploration on this mainline, how to do exploration with these models. The good example where I see this, and I like every time I see this or think about this, I feel quite happy, is our deep think models. Those are the models that we go to the IMO competition with to the ISPC competition, ICPC competition with. And I think that's a really, really cool and good example, because like we do the exploration, you pick these like big targets. Like IMO competition is really important, right? Like it's really hard problems, and like kudos to every student out there who's competing in those competitions. Amazing stuff, really. And like being able to put a model there, of course, like you have the urge to do something custom for that.
Yeah.
We sort of, what we try to do is use that as an opportunity to evolve what we have, or to come up with new ideas that are compatible with the models that we have, because we believe in the generality of the technology that we have. And then that's how things like deep think happen. And then like we come up with something, and then we make it available for everyone, right? So everyone can use a model that is actually the one that is used in the IMO competition.
Yeah, just to draw a corollary between what you said, the 25 people in the paper.
Yeah.
I think now the today version of that is you look at, like, I'm sure there's a Gemini 3 contributors list that will come out or is already
Probably
out.
2,500.
And there's like 2,500 people. And then I'm sure people are
Conservatively.
yeah, I'm sure people are thinking there's no way that 2,500 people contributed to actually, but they did, which is crazy. And it is fascinating to see like how large scale some of these problems are now.
Yeah, they did. And I think it is important for us, and that's one of the great things about Google. There are so many people who are amazing experts in their areas. We benefit from that. Like Google has this full stack approach, right? Like we benefit from that. So you have experts at every layer, from like data centers to chips to like networking to how to run these things at scale, right? It come to a state, again, going in on this like engineering mindset, it come to a state that these things are not separable, right? Like when we design a model, we design it knowing what hardware it's going to run on, and we design the next hardware knowing where the models will probably go. But this is beautiful, right? Like, I mean, but coordinating this, yes, of course, you have thousands of people working together and contributing. And I think we need to recognize that, and that's a beautiful thing. That's great.
Yeah, it's not easy to pull off. One of the interesting threads is around back to this sort of like DeepMind legacy, sort of doing all these different scientific approaches and like trying to solve these really interesting problems. And today, where we actually like sort of know that this technology works in a bunch of capacities, and we truly just need to keep scaling it up, and obviously there's innovation that's required to keep doing that. But I'm curious like how you think about DeepMind sort of in today's era balancing, you know, purely doing scientific exploration versus like we're just trying to scale up Gemini. And maybe we can use my favorite example for you, which is Gemini diffusion, as a sort of like an example of like that decision making come to life in some capacity.
Yeah. Like that is the most critical thing, right? Like finding that balance is really important. Even now, when people ask me like, what is the biggest risk for Gemini? And of course, I think about this a lot. The biggest risk for Gemini is running out of innovation. Because I really don't believe that like we figured out the recipe and like we're just going to execute from here. I don't believe in that. If our goal is to build intelligence, and we're going to do that, of course, like with the users, with the products, but the problems out there are very challenging. Like our goal is still very challenging, and it's out there. And I don't feel like we have the recipe figured out that it's just scaling up or executing. It is innovation that is going to enable that. And innovation, you can think about it as at different scales or at different tangential directions to what you have right now. Like, of course, like we have Gemini models, and inside the Gemini project, we explore a lot. Like we explore new architectures, we explore new ideas, we explore different ways of doing things. We have to do that. We continue to do that. And that's where all the innovation comes from. But like also at the same time, I think DeepMind or Google DeepMind as a whole doing a lot more exploration. I think it is very critical for us. Like we have to do those things because like again, like there might be some things that like the Gemini project itself might be too constraining to explore some things. So like I think the best thing that we can do is both in Google DeepMind, also in Google Research, right? Like we would explore all sorts of ideas and we will bring those ideas in because at the end of the day, Gemini is not the architecture, right? Gemini is the goal that you want to achieve. The goal that you want to achieve is the intelligence, and you want to do it with your products enabling all of Google to really run on this AI engine. In a way, it doesn't matter what particular architecture it is.
Yeah.
We have something currently, and we have ways of evolving through that, and we will evolve through that. And the engine of that will be innovation. It will always be innovation. So finding that balance or finding opportunities of doing that in different ways, I think is very critical.
Yeah, I have a parallel question to that, which is at I/O, I sat down with Sergey and I made the comment to him that sort of when, and I personally felt this at I/O, which is you bring all these people together to launch these models and have this innovation, you sort of like feel the warmth of humanity as you do that, which is really interesting. And I was referencing this because of, I was sitting next to you also listening to them, and I sort of was feeling your warmth, and I mean this very personally because I think this translates into like how DeepMind sort of as a whole operates. And I think like Demis has this as well, where it's like this deep scientific roots, but also it's just like people who are like nice and friendly and kind. And there is something interesting where like I don't know how much people appreciate like how much that culture matters and like how it manifests. And I'm curious, like as you think about like helping sort of shape and run this, how that manifests for you.
Like first of all, like thank you very much. You're embarrassing. But like I think it is important to be. I believe in the team that we have, and I believe in giving people, like trusting people, giving people the opportunity, and that team aspect is important. And I think like this is something that at least to my part I can say I've learned through working at DeepMind as well, like because like we were a small team, and of course like it's like you build that trust there, and then like how you maintain that as you grow. I think it is important to have this environment where people feel like, okay, like we really care about like solving the challenging technical scientific problem that makes an impact that matters for real world. And I think that is still what we are doing, right? Like Gemini, as I said, is about that. Like building intelligence is a highly technical, challenging scientific problem. We have to approach it with that way. We have to approach it with that humility as well, right? Like we have to always question ourselves. Like hopefully the team feels like that too. And I'm like, that's why I always keep saying I'm really proud of the team that they work together amazingly well. Like we were just talking upstairs at the micro kitchen today, right? Like I said to them, yes, it's tiring, yes, it's hard, yes, we are all exhausted, but this is what it is. Like we don't have a perfect structure for this. Everyone is coming together and working together and like supporting each other. It is hard, but like what makes it fun and enjoyable, and also like what makes you tackle really hard problems is, I think, to a big extent, like having the right team together, working together. The burden is, the way I see it, is more like be clear about the potential of the technology that we have.
Yeah.
I can't definitely say that 20 years from now it's the exact same LLM architecture. I'm sure it won't be.
Sure.
Right? So I think pushing for new exploration is the right thing to do. As we talked about, like GDM as a whole, together with Google Research, we have to be doing with the academic research communities. Like as a whole, we have to push many different directions. I think that's perfectly fine. Like what is right, what is wrong is I don't think that it's the important conversation. I think like the capabilities and the demonstrations of those capabilities in real world is the real thing that should speak for itself.
Yeah. I have one last question, which is, and I'm curious to have your reflection on this as well. I feel like for me personally, like my first year and a half plus at Google felt like, which I really liked actually, this like Google underdog story to a certain extent, which, despite all the infrastructure advantage and all that, like for me personally showing like working.
When did you join?
April 2024.
2024. Okay.
Yeah. So like and I also like the AI Studio context. So like we were building this product and like
Right.
sort of.
Oh yes. Now I remember.
We had no users. We had 30,000 users. We had no revenue. We had sort of very early in the Gemini model life cycle. And I think fast forward to today, and like it's obviously not like I was getting a bunch of pings earlier as sort of the last couple of days as this model has been rolling out, and from folks across the ecosystem, I'm sure you got a bunch of these as well. People like I think they're finally realizing that like this is happening. But I'm curious from your perspective, like what did you feel that like again I had belief, that's why I joined Google, that like we were going to get to this point, but like did you feel that underdogness too? And I'm curious like how you think the team will manifest for the team as we turn that corner.
I definitely did even before that, because like when LLMs really like became apparent that they're really powerful, right? Like I felt like very honestly, I felt like we were the frontier AI lab, right? Like in DeepMind, but also at the same time, I felt like, okay, like there's something that we haven't invested as much as we should have as researchers, and that's a big learning for me as well, right? Like that's why I'm always very careful about like we need to cast a wide net. That's really important. That exploration is important. It's not about this architecture, that architecture. And I've been very open with the team that when we started taking LLMs a lot more seriously, and starting with the Gemini program like 2.5 years ago, I think we have been always, and I've been very honest with the team that like we are nowhere near what is state of the art here. Like we don't know how to do a lot of things. There are a lot of things we know how to do, but like we are not at that level yet, and it's a catch up. And it has been a catch up for a long while. I feel like nowadays we are at that leadership group.
Yeah.
I feel really good and positive about the pace that we are operating at. We're in a good sort of rhythm. We have a good dynamic. We have a good rhythm. But like, we have been catching up. You have to be honest with yourself, right? Like when you are catching up, you are catching up. You have to see what others are doing and like learn what you can learn. But you have to innovate for yourself, and that's what we did. And that's what I feel like it's a good underdog story in a sense in that way, right? Like we innovated for ourselves, and like we found our own solutions, both like technology-wise, model-wise, process-wise, and how we run. Right? And it's unique to us, right? Like we run together with all of Google. Like look at like what we are doing. It's a very different scale. I never saw these things as like sometimes people also say, oh, Google is big and it is hard. Yeah. I see that as like we can turn it into our advantage because we have unique things that we can do. So like I'm quite pleased where we are, but we had to learn through and innovate through that. That's a good way to achieve what we have achieved right now. And like there's a lot more to do. Yeah. Right? Like I mean, I feel like we are sort of just catching up. We are just getting there. There's always comparisons, but our goal is to build intelligence, right? Like we want to do that. We want to do it the right way. And that's where we are putting all our minds, all our innovation that way.
Yeah, I feel like the next 6 months are going to be probably just as exciting as the last 6 months and the previous 6 months before that. Exactly. Thank you for taking the time to sit down. This was a ton of fun. I hope we get to sit down again before I/O next year, which feels like forever, but it is going to sneak up on us. I'm sure there's going to be meetings like next week that are like I/O 2026 planning to make everything happen. So thank you for taking the time. Congrats again to you and the DeepMind team and everyone on the model research team for making Gemini 3, Nano Banana Pro, everything else happen.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been amazing having this conversation. It's an amazing journey as well, and glad to have all the team, but also like sharing with you as well. It's great. Thank you very much for inviting me.
We got a special little gift. Thank you to congratulate you and the team for making this happen.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much. Very much on point.
1500 point ELO club. First model, right? 1501
yes,
for
first model. Very kind. Thank you very much.